Hi, Fernanda. How are you? Francesca, sorry. How are you doing? Oh, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you. How are
I'm
you
good.
doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Where are you now?
I'm in Rhode Island. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Um, so yes, can I talk to you about your email right now since I have you on screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think my only concern with the project is that if you have your unit of analysis as presidents, then your N is only like 3 or 4 or 5. I think you changed it to like looking at 3 presidents. So that's why I was like hoping instead for the purposes of doing like quantitative analysis, then maybe it could change to being like analyzing the specific proposals instead so that there
Okay.
could like it could increase that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can do that instead.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Okay. And I can message you in more detail.
Okay.
Hi,
Okay, thank
Janai.
you.
How are you? I feel like I'm really dark. I should probably not have the light behind me like this. Let me see if I can get a better view for you guys. Hi, Mariana. How are you?
Hi.
I'm going to go this way so I have a better view. Oh, now I'm too bright. I can't get it right in here. All right, I'll try like this way. Oh, and I'm in my exercise pants. That's not a good look. Okay. All right. We're frozen. Can you guys hear me? What's going on? All right. Sorry. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Sorry. I'll go back like this. All right. I'll give people like a couple more minutes, but how are you guys hanging in there?
It's an
Everyone
interesting
okay?
time. Definitely getting into a routine, dealing with like technical issues and finding like a quiet place to work that has Wi-Fi. It's been an interesting time.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think this is a scenario that none of us ever wanted for sure. We didn't go to Whedon and start teaching at Whedon because we wanted to be online, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big challenge. Well, I thank you guys for logging in with me. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I just wanted to say, I know that it's a difficult time for everybody, so that's why instead of making these sessions mandatory, I will just go ahead and record them too, so that people can see them at their own time. But it's great. It's great if you can log in too, because then I can take any questions you have in the moment as well. But just note if you have questions, we could also set up individual Zoom meetings at any time as well. So please just reach out to me. One thing I wanted to just make everyone aware of is that the last day to drop a course without record is this coming Friday. So I know for some people, things might be just too challenging right now. And if that's an option you have to exercise, it would be best to do it by this Friday because then it won't be marked on your record. Another interesting thing that I just saw today is a change to the pass-fail grading option for this semester. So personally, I think that's a really good change to offer students more flexibility during these challenging times. So for this semester only, you can use the pass-fail option for all of your courses if you prefer. So there's usually a limit on how many courses you can take pass-fail. There will not be that limit. Usually you can't I think you can't use that option for core courses in your major. that's also been eliminated. So just to note, if you want to take this course pass fail, that's an option that's open to everybody. So I like that. I think it gives everybody maybe less worry, more flexibility. So just think about if that's the right option for you.
Can we set a target grade for the pass fail?
Yes, I think from how I read the legislation, it's the same. It's the same scenario as the regular pass fail, where you would set that target. The only differences are how that you can use it for any courses, and you could use it for more courses.
The required
and it's the change to the policy is like only for this semester because of the unique circumstances.
Sorry, with that, does that mean like if you were just to pass the class and not hit the target, but you passed the class, that wouldn't count for your GPA? But if you did hit the target, it would count for your GPA. And if you didn't hit the target and you failed it, it would also count for your GPA.
That's how I understood it. Yeah.
Okay.
Did you guys get a message about this yet? Or
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about it because I had just gotten that email.
okay. Yeah, I mean, how I read it, let me read it again to be 100% sure, but I read it that it works the same way as your typical pass fail. It's just that that it's more flexible in how you can use it. So you would set a target grade, and if you didn't meet that grade but you still passed the course, it would just be recorded as a P.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions about that? Okay, so I noticed a lot of people have already contributed to the online forum, so that was exciting to see that that's working. I saw that some of you have already attempted the online quiz. I just want to reiterate about the quiz that it's just to highlight some main parts from the material I'm sharing with you, so please don't take seriously your grades for the quiz. Especially, I'm new to creating the quizzes, so 2 of the questions you would have gotten wrong no matter what. So literally the highest grade you could get is an 80. So just note that I'm not keeping track of the grades for the quizzes. I'm just keeping track of whether you attempted them. So I don't want anybody to be stressed out about that. And then also, hopefully you saw that there's an option to check the correct answers. So if you didn't get the correct answer, just check and see what it was. And then after, if you don't understand why your answer wasn't correct, please just reach out to me there. But don't take those grades seriously. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to kind of reiterate some of the main points for the material this week. So if you haven't attempted the quiz yet, some of this material might still be relevant for that. So our main topic was surveys today. A few of you are doing surveys for class, most of you aren't, but I think all of you at some point in your political science career will be reading research with surveys. We've already read a lot of research this semester that's included survey data. So there's a lot of overlap with the chapter on surveys, I think, and material that we've already discussed before. So obviously, when you're going to collect data using a survey, you're going to need a sample. You're not going to, give your survey to everyone in the United States. So there's some overlap there. So when researchers are using a survey, I want to know, what is their sampling frame? How have they collected their sample? Of course, what is their sample size? What is their N? Something else important to know in terms of surveys is I think it's very relevant to know the response rate. So you'll start with a sampling frame of who you send your survey out to, but how many people actually complete the survey, that's your response rate. So many times the response rates will actually be quite low, around like 20 to 30% depending. So that's interesting to think about response rate in terms of sample bias. is there some shared characteristic between the people who would choose to complete the survey versus those who wouldn't? And how might that contribute to sample bias? So just another something to think about in the back of your mind. So when analyzing survey research of others, it necessarily includes looking at their sample. And we've already talked a bit in class before we were separated about thinking about samples, different types of samples, and the potential for sample bias. Another thing to think about with surveys is the survey type. So your textbook talked about, okay, are you going to collect your survey online? Are you going to do interviews in person? Is it going to be done through the mail? And of course, there's a lot of competing perspectives there on which is best. So basically, your researchers are going to engage in a cost-benefit analysis. How costly is a survey type? What is the likely response rate? And a lot of times, those two things are competing with one another. So a type of survey that might be the least costly, you might have kind of lower response rates and vice versa. So that's a decision that the researcher has to make. And then of course, I think the most interesting thing coming out of the textbook reading on surveys is thinking about survey questions. And what I think about in terms of survey questions goes all the way back to when we originally were talking about measurement and thinking about the concept of validity, right? Are you really measuring what you think you're measuring? And when we're looking at the survey questions being asked by researchers, that's really what we're analyzing. Are they really tapping into what they think that they're tapping into? So what do you guys think? What are some reasons why survey questions might have low validity? That the researchers think that they're measuring something, but they're actually not getting valid responses. Any thoughts? Sorry. Oh, yes, Christian, I don't see you, but I see you're raising your hand.
You don't see my
Oh yes, I see you now. Sorry, let me.
okay, I guess it was just positioned in the wrong way. Yeah, to go off kind of my research question, I think something like where I'm measuring perception of bias in the judicial system, I think that is just difficult thing to measure because you're measuring the respondent's perception of a specific thing, which, it's just difficult to try and, like, how can you quantify and empirically measure someone's perception? And I think that can affect the research validity.
Yes, yeah, very good, Christian. I think that's a very common concern too, especially when we're measuring concepts that are abstract and we're measuring them in the abstract. Can we tap into real beliefs is always going to be a potential concern. Anyone else have a thought? So something else I think that is important to think about is social desirability. And we've talked about this before, but are people going to share their true feelings, or are they going to give what is the socially desirable response? And so even though these surveys might be anonymous, it's been shown through research that people still try to give responses that are socially desirable. And so through good and well thought out survey questions, hopefully we can kind of minimize that effect in some way. So that's just something to think about as we continue to look at more research with survey questions, and as we do our own, to keep these things in mind. Yes, Janai, do you have a question? Janai?
Hello? Can
Yes.
you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. In terms of the validity, like with the online citizen paper that we read, he mentioned that the respondents had an incentive in the forms of gift vouchers. And I thought that could influence validity because people may be responding simply for the incentive and not offer responses that are really representative of how they feel, but rather because of the incentive. So I wasn't sure if that was something that would be influential.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, Janai. So this is something we see commonly, that to increase response rate, you're going to offer some sort of incentive for completing a survey. But I think it's definitely worth thinking about how that might affect your validity. So first of all, how would it affect your sample? Is there something that people who are incentivized by these things would have in common that would then become a source of sample bias? And then also, speaking to your point, might that in some way influence the quality of their responses? So if they're just motivated by the incentive, are they rushing through their responses? Are they even reading the questions? Maybe they're just filling in bubbles. So I think you're exactly right. That's a very valid concern. So any other comments or questions about surveys at this point? Okay, so another thing that I shared with you guys on Monday was the PDF from the Institutional Review Board. I just want to share that with you because though many of you aren't doing surveys for this particular project, you might find yourself, doing an independent study or an honors thesis in the future in which you're using human subjects. So we often think of this term human subjects and we think maybe more of the sciences, medicine, etc. But actually, even just by asking people to participate in our surveys, that counts as having human subjects in our research. So if you were to do that type of research outside of research methods, it would need the approval of the Institutional Review Board. So hopefully you guys had a chance to look at that PowerPoint, but it's obviously a very salient and a very sad history that kind of led to the formation of federal legislation mandating institutional review boards to protect human subjects from the type of research atrocities we've seen in the past. So in terms of doing survey research in political science, it's just important to know the main principles of the research code. First of all, that participation should always be voluntary, and that's something that needs to be stressed to your participants. And also a weighing of, the costs and benefits of participation. So, typically in the field of political science, the costs are relatively low, and in some ways the personal benefits are relatively low. So it's just kind of a question of, taking your time as the cost and the benefits is trying to contribute to a broader literature. But when the Institutional Review Board is reviewing your work, they want to see that it will make a positive contribution. So I've gone through the Institutional Review Board process with several students, and they do take their job very seriously, making sure that surveys are well constructed, that if you're going to basically take people's time out of their day, that you're going to at least be like practicing good research. So in terms of this class, I serve as your proxy to the Institutional Review Board. So that's why I need to approve everybody's surveys, their cover letters, just to make sure that we're upholding those basic principles. Yes, Janai? Oops, where are you? Yes, do you have a question?
No, I didn't. That must have been a glitch.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I saw it looked like you were raising your hand. Okay. Any questions about institutional review? Okay. And then finally, I put up a short video about sources of quantitative data. I thought that this would be a good video to share as we're moving into working on assignment 2. So within the class, you guys did a good job in assignment 1 describing your research designs. But we basically have people collecting their data through surveys. We have people collecting their data through aggregate analysis. You're aggregating data from other sources. And then we might have a couple of people who are doing content analysis where they're analyzing laws or pieces of legislature and developing measures that way. So the point that we're at now is beginning to work on assignment 2. And the first step of that is putting your data into a spreadsheet. But I usually use an Excel spreadsheet, but any type of spreadsheet software you have is acceptable. If you don't have spreadsheet software, you could always just open up a table in Word or whatever is accessible to you. But does everybody, do you guys understand what I mean by a spreadsheet? There we go. Okay, well, so I put on yes, Mariana?
Oh, never mind. I was going to ask if you could go in more detail because I was kind of confused on just how it would work.
Yes, definitely. So on our on-course page, yesterday I put a few examples onto our on-course page. Let me see if I can share my screen with you, but then I don't know how I see you guys. All right. Well, I'll have to get better at that. I'll just talk through it now. But so I put 3 separate examples on OnCourse. One is a data set where the student's unit of analysis was states. So you'll see their first column down is a list of the 50 states. So for everyone, that your first column should be your unit of analysis. So a second example I put on OnCourse was somebody that did a survey. So you'll see that their first column is just numbers. Those are their respondent numbers. So it's this kind of like respondent 1, respondent 2, respondent 3. So in thinking about it in terms of your own data, that's where it becomes important. What's your unit of analysis? So it might be, you might have like state year, or it might just be year. It might be the school districts. It might be the countries in Africa. And of course, if it's a survey, it's just your respondents. You can code your respondents in any particular way. So one thing is, because this is a course on quantitative analysis, remember that we're striving for an N of 20 or more, ideally. So we want to have at least 20 observations in some way. So that would mean that you would have 20 rows across, because each row then becomes one of your observations. And then your columns are your variables. So it would look like, okay, my state is Alabama. Then my first column would be infant mortality rate, say. And so then it would be the number for Alabama, the number for my next state, like that. So you think of it as each column is a variable and each row is an observation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I was just kind of confused. For me, for mine, I'm analyzing countries in the Middle East and how direct foreign investment has affected them from China specifically. And there's only 16 countries, 15 or 16 countries that they invest in. And
Mhm.
so like I was worried because that was under the n number, but like under my dependent variables, they were like a lot more expansive, if that makes sense.
Yes. Um, so in your project is time, does it go across time as well?
Yeah.
Okay. So it might look like a scenario where it's like it would be looking like, say, Israel 1995, Israel 1996, Israel 1997, like that, because your unit of analysis is actually country year. So then
Okay.
that is actually making your observations more than just the 16 countries, because it's like
Okay.
the countries times
That
however
makes sense because,
studying.
okay, thank you.
So I could definitely picture that would be something that might affect a lot of yours. Yes, Janai? Do you have a question?
Yes. For assignment 2, there's a section about frequency distribution. Does this only apply to people who are doing surveys, or people doing aggregate data like me? Are we expected to have a frequency distribution section?
Good question, Janai. Everybody will have a frequency distribution section. Don't worry about that yet. Next week, I'm going to post a bunch of material and I'm going to sign in, and we're going to talk about how to calculate all those statistics.
Okay, so you should just worry about the data matrix for now.
Yeah, the first step is just getting together your data matrix and your code book. And then if you have that together sooner rather than later, it'll be great because you can actually start doing those things when we go over them next week. So the plan is on Monday, I'm going to post like a sample assignment, and I'm going to post a video, and I'm going to post more material to try to kind of help you complete that assignment. And then next Wednesday, I will log in and answer any particular questions you have, and also go over some more, calculating some more statistics. And if you're able to successfully complete that sample assignment, then you'll be all set to finish assignment 2. So that'll be our goal for next week. For the end of this week and in the weekend, I would like to just see you guys getting your data sets together. So one thing to think about that too, of course, is that when we talk about quantifying data, that sounds like a fancy term. But remember, we're just giving number values to things that might not typically be numbers. So some of our data is ratio level data, perhaps interval level data, and that's already numbers. But some of our data sources are ordinal or nominal. And basically, we're just assigning numeric value to things that are really words, right? So if you're thinking about, asking people if they're liberal or conservative, we talk about putting that on a 7-point scale. So it's like 1 is strongly conservative, 7 is very liberal. And so, of course, we're just giving numbers to each point on the scale. So one thing to think about is if you have something like that in your own data, don't waste time putting in the words, just assign the numbers. Just put it as numbers to begin with, because that's going to save you a lot of time. And then, of course, just make sure you're putting it in your code book. That's why the code book's so important, so that you don't forget what each number means. You can do the same thing for nominal level data. So say I want to characterize the 50 states by region. I can just go ahead and in my code book, I can say 1 is Northeast, 2 is the South, 3 is the West, etc. And instead of typing it in, I just put in my number characterization. But when we start to do the statistics, we want everything to be in a number format. Does that make sense? Okay, any questions about that?
I know we'll get into it. I know we'll get into it later. For like analyzing the statistics and like getting the numbers for that.
Mhm.
I know there's like a program at school that we would usually use, but like we're not able to.
Yeah.
But I also know like I am very fortunate. I live in like St. Louis, so there's a lot of like major universities and research universities. Would it be possible to like, if I got permission, obviously, to use like their systems to like analyze and do like the math and statistical analysis for that? I just didn't know like if that was an option.
Yes. So, really good question, Mariana. Of course, with our current circumstances, there's a lot of flexibility on my part. When it comes to the descriptive statistics, a lot of that is like we could actually do it even by hand. So, I mean, it's a little crazy, but
I think you're overestimating my ability to accurately do math.
yeah, no, I understand, but we can do a lot of the stuff in Excel. So if people have access to that, I'm hoping most people can access a program like Excel. We can probably do
Would Google like Sheets work?
yeah, Google Sheets should work too.
Okay.
I need to do a little research. I'm just not that good at Google Sheets yet, but planning on doing that. And then, yeah, if people can access the statistical software, definitely go for it, but I'm not gonna expect that of anyone because I don't even want people to have to do temporary license if they're not, because then you forget to cancel them, and so there's going to be definitely a lot of different options that are available. And just to put that out there too, in terms of being flexible, people's research is difficult in different ways. Some of you have had projects where it's been pretty easy to collect the data and you're in a good place to move forward on assignment 2. And some of you, it's a lot more difficult. So, reach out to me. I can tailor the assignment to your particular needs as well. So it might, as we move forward, we might not all be doing exactly the same thing, which is okay, because I'd rather you do a smaller portion of your project really well than, just push through everything and not have a good product. So we have to kind of work with where we're at right now. Does that make sense? Okay, so I've been trying to work on revising our schedule for the rest of the semester. But I'm not quite there yet. One thing I did do today was kind of update the next couple weeks. So next week, as I said, we're gonna be learning about the descriptive statistics. I'll post videos and a bunch more material by Monday. Oh, sorry, and unrelated, if anyone doesn't have access to their textbook, you can have a free online ebook. So I'll send that along in case that applies to anyone. But I know some people were borrowing from the library, or maybe it got left at campus. So we can all use the ebook for free, and that's going to be important moving forward. Okay, so sorry. So next week, descriptive statistics, I'll plan on logging again Wednesday live to go over some more material and take any questions. And then the week after that, it's like when we would typically be having quiz 2. What I'm going to do is I'm going to post quiz 2 on Monday, and then you guys can have the week to complete it. And I'm going to change it to like an open book, open resource quiz as well, to make that more accessible for you guys. So just look that there's a date for that now, and then that's at the end of that week is also when I'm aiming for you guys to have your assignment 2s done as well. So like a little over 2 weeks from today. Does that sound good? Okay. Okay. Any questions for me? Yes, Christian?
I have a question, but it's related to my survey. I did send you an email that I had like the second draft of my survey completed.
Yes.
I just wanted to know if, not that I'm not asking if you've taken a look at it. I'm just wanting to know if you've seen the email so you know that that's there.
Yes. Thank you,
Okay.
Kristen. I know I owe you an email today, and I owe Francesca an email today. I'm going to give feedback on your surveys, on your research designs today.
Yeah, because I'm sure, and Francesca as well, the sooner we have like our complete surveys, the sooner we can send them out and start to collect data. That raises another question, it's a quick one that we have. Should we be concerned of by their bias or anything like that if we send our survey out to our classmates for them to fill in, or not really?
I mean, that's an interesting question. I think that there definitely could be some bias just in terms of your classmates know a lot more about what the purposes of your research is. So that could kind of, in terms of social desirability, would they kind of want to give the answers that they think your project's looking for? So I would probably recommend, if like you are going to send it out to the class, or to, you say, the class of 2020, we would say like, oh, if you're in the course, maybe don't take this survey.
Okay.
But definitely we can talk more about this as well. I think the crazy circumstances of right now, it's gonna make it hard to have a representative sample.
All right, thank you.
All right. Okay, anyone else? All right. Well, thank you guys for logging on. And yep, so reach out to me if you want to have an individual meeting at any point. It's nice to talk to you guys and get away from my kids for a second. So I appreciate your time, and I will see you guys next week. And I'll send videos before that as well. All right. Bye.